Good morning, guys. It is Saturday, February 17th. We're back down to 51,000. This is episode 39. So I'm going to cover in this episode, really, I want to focus on these fund flows from Byte Tree. And I want to sort of take a look at the last 4 years and really try to make some sense of what we're seeing now relative to the last 4 years. I think it'll be very interesting. But before we get into that, so we've seen this really interesting pattern of during the week when BlackRock gets their orders at the end of the day, they've got 24 hours to deploy this cash and to put it into Bitcoin. And we're seeing that typically there's these buy orders that have come in from the day. They start getting deployed about 3 hours, 6 hours later. We see this surge in kind of post trading because they have to do it. They have to do it over the next 24 hours, except on Friday, right, when they have really the entire weekend to buy it, right? So actually, I think what we're seeing now is we have this long weekend, and BlackRock's in no hurry to deploy any money that was put into Friday. They have now the whole weekend, including Monday, to deploy that money. So it wouldn't totally surprise me if we have a sort of a weak weekend, and then we get back on Tuesday and we rally. So I'm not at all. And anyways, I don't care if it goes down 1,000 points. It just doesn't matter to me. So with that said, I want to look at some of these fund flows from Byte Tree, and let's just go back to this Byte Tree terminal. And you see here, these fund flows are presented here over 90 days, right? So cumulative 90-day Bitcoin flows. Now, this is a pretty interesting metric because it kind of smooths out some of these jumps. Now, what we see here is there's a peak of 200,000 at sort of for end of January 2021, which would be about 65,000 a month, right? Sort of average, because they did 200,000 over a 90-day period. So what I did is I went back on every 3 months. I pulled out the number from this graph, and then I averaged it down. So if you go to this page here, I basically looked at this and I said, okay, what would that be on a monthly basis, right, for each of these quarters, right? So basically, if you look at this and we sort of see, okay, we're running at, in 2020, we're running at about 10,000 Bitcoin a month was being put into the system. Okay, and then we had this big spike here where we got to about 35, 40,000 Bitcoin per month on average. Now, we spiked at 60,000, but, we were kind of doing on average about 40,000 Bitcoin a month. Then it slowed down, and then it just died completely. So it was really a 3-month period where we had this 45,000, which was in the last quarter of 2020. And where did that come from? Well, that came from the 3AC digital currency group arbitrage, right? Because basically, at that point, they were incentivized. They were lent money by DCG that they could then plow in. They could buy these shares of DCG, and then they could sell those shares in 6 months, right? And that's what they did, and they started selling it. So it flamed out, basically. That's the whole impact of that. So it's really an arb trade, right? A VC kind of backed, digital currency group backed arb trade that happened here. It wasn't really, and of course there was some excitement. There was a lot of excitement, and it did coincide with Bitcoin going up to 60,000, but it was kind of arb trade driven, right? That's really where this happened. And then after that, effectively zero, right? So even in 2021, when we had another peak, really was no net money coming in, right? Because now GBTC was trading at a discount, and no net money was coming into the system. And of course, 2022 was just a disaster, completely flat. Money at the end of 22, that's when FTX blew up and money was being pulled out of the system. no money came in. No money came in even in 2023. We had a nice little rally in Bitcoin price, but no funds were not buying at all, except in the last quarter of last year when everybody started anticipating these ETFs. And then, boom, and we don't have obviously a whole quarter full of data. We have half a quarter full of data. But, we're kind of like headed towards this 100,000 Bitcoin per month number. So just to give you how much it dwarfs previous funds is absolutely pretty remarkable. So again, what I really want to get out of this graph is the following. First of all, we had this flow here was somewhat artificial, right? Because of GBTC. Okay, it was somewhat artificial. It wasn't really sort of native fund-driven demand. Second of all, these total of these numbers is not that big, right? We didn't, we probably had outside of this GBTC stuff, maybe 200-300 Bitcoin total, 1,000 Bitcoin total that was kind of put in funds over these 4 years. And just to give you an example, MSTR did 200,000 Bitcoin roughly on their own during that period, right? So MSTR was half the entire Bitcoin bought by all institutions, all funds, not just institutions, but by all retail in all funds, right? So it really tells you that this ETF stuff is very, very special, right? Now, Jim Bianco recently was sort of poo-pooing it, sort of saying, yeah, it'll get you to 80K. We all thought that gold people were going to peel off 1% of their money and go into gold. And this didn't happen. Hey, look, he may be, we don't know, right? He may be right. But certainly doesn't look like that way if you look at the last 30 days of trading data on inflows on these Byte Tree data. So, anyways, that's the update for today. I think the only thing I really want to get out of it is these ETFs. The flow numbers have been really absolutely spectacular in these ETFs. And second thing is, other than these ETFs, nothing's really been working for Bitcoin for the last 4 years, right? And you could argue that even the 2020 thing was kind of an artificial boom that was sort of architected by DCG, and there's just a few actors involved: DCG, 3AC, GBTC, and MicroStrategy. Those are really the only actors. So I'm really hopeful that we can see some serious buying, and I think it's going to make an enormous difference in price. But we still have all these unwinds from the previous stuff that was still artificial, and we're still paying the price for that. So with that, I'm going to leave you on to the next episode, and enjoy your weekend, guys, and we'll probably see you on Tuesday.